dark, with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass, we're listening to our favorite song. When you said you looked a mess, I whispered underneath my breath, but you heard it. Darling, you look perfect tonight.
Well, I found a man stronger than anyone I know. He shares my dreams. I hope that someday we'll share our home. I found love to carry more than just my secrets, to carry love, to carry children of our own. We are still kids, but we're so in love, fighting against all odds. I know we'll be alright this time. Darling, just hold my hand. Be your girl, you'll be my man. And I see my future in your eyes. Well, baby, I'm dancing in the dark, with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass, while listening to our favorite song. When I saw you in that dress, looking so beautiful, I don't deserve this. Darling, you look perfect tonight. I
have faith in what I see. Now I know I have met
an angel in person,
and she looks perfect. I don't deserve this. You look perfect tonight. I found a love for me. Well, darling, just dive right in and follow my lead. Well, I found a girl, beautiful and sweet. Well, I never knew you were the someone waiting for me. 'Cause we were just kids when we fell in love, not knowing what it was. I will not give you up this time. Well, darling, just kiss me slow. Your heart is all I own, and in your eyes you're holding mine. Baby, I'm dancing in the dark, with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass, we're listening to our favorite song. When you said you looked a mess, I whispered underneath my breath, but you heard it. Darling, you look perfect tonight.
Well, I found a man stronger than anyone I know. He shares shares my dreams. I hope that someday we'll share our home. I found love to carry more than just my secrets, to carry love, to carry children of our own. We are still kids, but we're so in love, fighting against all odds. I know we'll be alright this time, darling, just hold.
So I took this doubling every year and extrapolated it 10 years from 1965 to 1975, from 60 components to 60,000 components on a chip.
First thing you have to tell him is, guys, we've been giving you a free ride for 30 years while you write your crummy software and we made it faster. Right? That's over.
The future is parallel. Single cores are not getting any faster.
All right. So, every time when I play a song before the lecture, typically there is a certain meaning for that. So like today we played a song called Perfect. And in terms of performance, we definitely want our performance to be as perfect as possible. So that's why we have that song played before the lecture begins. And if you don't have a chance to pay attention to the song that we just played, probably don't forget to check out our YouTube channel to review the video that we have today. And sometimes, right, if you want to be perfect, you need to be well prepared. But let me give you a disclaimer for today's lecture. I don't think I'm 100% well prepared for a reason. So first of all, I play baseball, and for some of you probably already heard about that, right? Like Juan Soto, who is probably one of the most greatest outfielder hitters now currently in Nationals in Washington, D.C. But later this week, he will be in San Diego because he's joining San Diego Padres. So we're spending a lot of time like this morning, a lot of my friends were sending me like messages, hey, Juan Soto is coming, right? So, wow, it's coming, right? It's happening. All right. So, that would be great. And if I get distracted, it must because my friends are sending me messages regarding the latest trade information from Major League Baseball. But, before we start, it's always a good idea to remind you where we are coming from. So last lecture, we talked about most modern computers are von Neumann architecture based. And the basic idea of von Neumann architecture is that a general purpose computer should have the following three components: processor, memory, and storage. And we compile the program and its data, statically store them in storage. But when you need to run them, execute them, we dynamically load them into the memory. And in the memory, you will have instructions and data. And the processors can only directly interact with the memory and what's in memory, not only instructions, but also data. So every time when you need to perform an operation, it's completely depending on what's currently stored in the memory, and a processor fetch that instruction, look over it to see what kind of corresponding operations that we need to perform. And if it's an instruction that needs to fetch data, then that's when we access data memory. So that's the basic idea of von Neumann architecture. And the beauty of this von Neumann architecture is that by loading different programs into the memory or different data into the memory, your computer can be completely different. So this is the same no matter what kind of programming languages that you are using. If you use a compiler language like the C programming language, the compiler will generate those instructions and data and translate them into the binary format. And when you want to run them, before you run it, some kind of system software called linker would link those objects, libraries that your program invokes into and combine them together into some kind of image that would be later loaded into the designated memory, destination memory address for the processor to fetch those instructions and data correspondingly. And for Java, it's still a similar idea. Instead, but in addition to the original concept we have, the Java compiler does not generate the binary directly. Instead, it creates something called Java bytecode, and there is an intermediate layer called Java virtual machine that executes the Java bytecode. And by execution, it actually means that it translates those Java bytecode into the machine instructions that your processors can understand. And for Python, it also has an interpreter that dynamically link all the libraries that you need together with translation of your program on the fly and making this program instructions and making them in the corresponding memory address for the processor to execute. And a lot of you think about algorithms the most important. And however, through the demo last lecture, you should already know that in many cases, the complexity is only for your reference and it doesn't reflect the real performance. So for example, for the demo program that I show you, even with analog and sorting in front of the for loop, it seems like we are doing extra work. We are increasing the complexity of the program. However, the execution time would be a lot lower with sorting function being added. All right, so as I mentioned, our teaching style encourages conversation, encourages participation, encourages you to think. So right now, before go for lunch. All right. Before we discuss the performance problems today, right? I want you to think about one thing and discuss that within your group in a way that if you're on campus today for lunch, where do you typically go and why is that? So now please, let's go into the breakout room to discuss with a few friends for 3 minutes. Go. All right, I believe everyone is back now. So now I'm inviting some of you to share what you have heard from your group discussion regarding where do you typically go for lunch on campus and why is that? So feel free to raise your hand and share your thoughts.
I can share about that.
Okay, sure, please.
Our group style, our group members always go to a press center because they think it's convenient and it is close to the gather library, and it has many choices for us for the lunch.
Okay, so do you
Yeah.
guys discuss anything specific on price center to go to?
Like tapioca for me.
Okay, and why is
Tapioca
that?
Express. Because it's like contains the fried calamari and the fried chicken inside, and it's delicious for me. Yeah.
Okay, all right. What else? Where else would you guys go? All right, so I have Nathaniel.
Well, for my group, like some of us go to Six College Poke Bowl, and some of us go to Blue Pepper because I personally like Blue Pepper because I think it's pretty good. And some of us also go to Price Center.
Ah, okay. All right, Elliot.
Hey. So our group, basically everyone liked to go to Price Center. We found that almost none of us had dining dollars, so Price Center worked really well. And just like specifically, we talked about Santorini, Rubio's, and Panda Express. There were all like spots that.
Okay. Any reason for Santorini, Rubio's, or Panda Express?
Delicious food, right? Like, I mean,
delicious. Are you serious?
Sorry about that last one, but I guess, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, just tasty food, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. What else? Who else would like to share? All right, I have Steven.
Yo, I went to a Sunshine Market because I had EBT, so I was just like, hey, why not?
Economic option.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
I just cooked at home.
Hey. Hello? Okay, who else would like to share? All right, so it looks like you know, a few things that I have heard from here, right? And to be honest, when I were a student, I don't have two different answers from you guys, except that the Sixth College, well, it's there, but well, there were six college when I were a student, but the Sixth College were not where the current Sixth College located. So there weren't that many. So I don't know. I haven't tried a lot in Sixth College, and I heard that there's going to be a ramen place, but I don't know if it's good or not. But okay, so here are a few criteria that would typically go on campus for a few reasons. And for me, you know, I'm not sure how many of you have ever been to campus since the pandemic starts, but UC San Diego is surprisingly crowded if everyone goes back to campus. So give you some idea, UC San Diego is right now a campus with 41,000 students and is probably ranked the third in terms of the number of populations in terms of students across all the UC campuses. And however, we don't have the largest campus of the UC system, or maybe we are, but we are definitely very densely populated. And the amount of restaurants that we have is very limited. And unlike our siblings like Berkeley is very well connected with the city, UC San Diego is not, right? So the closest, I cannot even think of there is a walking distance restaurant outside of the campus, right? So, some of them are, but you probably have to walk for a long time, right? But we only have sometimes we only have 80 minutes between different classes. So definitely we have to be really picky, and we have to make a lot of decisions regarding where to go for lunch. And typically, like, speed of service is really important. So I do have the experience that the line of Burger King is not super long, but it takes us like 10 minutes to get our food. It's just because the French fries is not ready yet. And for Takioka Express, it's one of my most frequently visited one, because although the line is typically long, but at least the average wait time is not very long. So for me, right, you can hear that for me, the most important thing is probably speed of service, right? And some of you probably, for example, if your stomach is not strong enough, then you probably care about the cleanness of the restaurant itself, right? And sometimes you don't like people being rude, so you want friendliness, right? And on campus, regarding taste of food, I don't think you have too many choices on campus. So, but it's definitely something that you would consider as a metric of making your decision, right? So all of this is some kind of performance metrics that you would consider when you are making decisions regarding what to eat for lunch. So now, for computers, right, what's the definition of performance? So for the performance, there are many different measures that we would consider. So we are going to give you an idea about what kind of performance are we talking in particular for this class. And then I will introduce the classic CPU performance equation and what would affect each factor in performance equation. So first of all, what is performance? So, you know, you in your real life, you would use a computer to do a lot of different things. And when you are doing each of the thing, you probably have different considerations. So it's really important when you are talking about that, I am building the best computer system, or I have the best computer programs for a spatial purpose, right? So it's really important for you to figure out what's the right metrics to consider when you are evaluating the performance for a purpose, right? So as I mentioned, right, we are using peer instruction. So before the lecture, you should complete the required reading. And one way that I'm trying to ensure that you have done that is the reading quiz, which the deadline has passed. And so if you haven't done it, probably you missed that part, but don't miss that next time. And during the lecture, I would encourage you guys to first think individually and then go into group discussion. And then finally, we have a whole classroom discussion. So as the very first experience of peer instruction, now I am inviting you to think this problem individually and send your answers through the bot feature of Zoom. All right, now let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so now what I want to do is I I would like to have us go into a group discussion. So for the group discussion, I have partitioned you guys into these 4 different groups. So if the last digit of your PID, and typically that would start with an A, with several digits following that. And the last digit of your PID, if it's 0, 2, or 5, 7, you are group yellow. And for the last digit of 1 and 6, you are group blue. And if you are in red, that will be group with those who with PID 3 and 8. And if you are the rocket team, and you are definitely you are with the digit of 4 and 9. So now the next thing I want you to do is that please open the PNG file, send through the chat. And the reason why I have to explicitly do that is because the feature of Zoom doesn't allow me to share my screen after you guys entering the breakout rooms. So now make sure that you open the file that I send through the chat. And after you have done that, it's time to go into the breakout room. And you can definitely elect someone as your scriber. And then later on, I will have some lottery process to figure out which team would be representing, would be selected to answer. Or if some team is willing to answer the question, we don't have to force someone to, but that's definitely part of the process. So now, let's go into the group discussion. And when you guys are back, don't forget to vote again for what your group discussed. Okay, so when you guys are back, don't forget to vote again for what your group have discussed. All right, so when you guys are back, don't forget to vote for what your group has discussed. You have 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 second to put in your answer. All right, so after discussion, okay, so you guys should reach some kind of consensus, right? So now I am inviting one of the group to share your thoughts with us. Your describer of the group and tell us which group you are. And okay, one thing I forgot to mention, although this is not counting toward your score, but if you are within a group and if your group correctly answer most of the question through the whole classroom discussion for the whole quarter, then each of the member in this group would be able to receive an Amazon gift card. So it's not giving you better grades, but it will give you money. So does that give you some incentive to share what your group is thinking about? Any group would like to share your thoughts? Please raise your hand. All right, Elliot, which group are you?
I think we were the yellow group.
Okay, yes, you are in a yellow group. So what do you guys think?
So I'll just say our answer first.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
sure.
so we thought it was D.
You thought it's D. Okay, so why?
So one, network bandwidth to downloading the ISO image. I would say it's like if it was like a big image, right? It's a lot of data. You would want the network bandwidth to be enough that you would not have to wait a long time to get it. For Fortnite, end-to-end latency, it's a video game, right? So you need to have updates on like your opponent's positions and where everyone else is like very quickly. So the latency can't be too big, or else like over when you're playing on network, you'll see inaccurate data.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when you click on something, right, you want the response to be really quick, right?
Yeah,
so that sometimes matters more. Like I don't want to play and I launch something, but it turns out that it takes 10 seconds to get it launched, right? So you want the response, you want the end-to-end latency to be short, right? What else?
Then for YouTube, Netflix, we did 3 frame rate. If you're dropping frames when you're getting frames, then you're not getting the entire movie, right? So and then
and sometimes we really care those subtle details, right? All right, what else?
And then throughput for the ML model, there's a lot of data, a lot of things that needs to be completed. So you want to have all those operations like actually perform, right, and come through.
All right, and thanks for sharing, right? So oh sorry. So let me share the result with you guys. So this is what we have after discussion. So after discussion, 69% of you agree is D. And before discussion, right? We are kind of like split in C and D, and we also have quite a few of you think it's either A and B. So that's why there is a value of discussion. At least people have some misconception between C and D has been cleared out. And regarding A and B, let me see. Okay, so there is a very interesting okay, so regarding A and B, so I think most of the for A and B, I think the biggest difference between these two groups is actually the the throughput and the end-to-end latency, right? So throughput, we're talking about operations per second. However, it doesn't really reflect to the end-to-end latency. So why am I saying that, right? So the throughput, there are many metrics talking about throughput. So one of the example that I could give you is probably this, right? So saying that, right, today I want to watch a movie, right? And if I really want a movie, there are several ways that I can get it. Saying that I have a friend who is in Riverside, and I want to get movie from a friend, and he's notoriously good for collecting all the movies you want. So he said that, well, if you come to my place, I will give you all the hard disk drives that I have. So if you have a Toyota Prius, right, you can basically take thousands of you can take I think a Toyota Prius can definitely put like hundreds of hard disk drives in it, right? And in this way, you can have like terabytes of data, several hundred of terabytes of data, and you can carry all of them within 3.5 hours round trip time between San Diego and Riverside, and it will give you an effective bandwidth of 290 gigabyte per second, right? However, if you want to just see one friend in a movie, right, that would take you at least 3.5 hours because you cannot do anything before you retrieve that movie, right? In the meantime, using the network, yeah, the bandwidth is a lot slower, right? However, as long as the first friend arrives, you can start watching that. So that's the biggest difference between throughput and bandwidth, right? So for this example, the bandwidth, or say the throughput, the throughput and the latency, right? So for this example, bandwidth is some kind of throughput. And the throughput of Toyota Prius is a lot larger. However, every operation would take 3.5 hours, although you can finish one operation at a lot of operations at the same time. However, each operation takes a lot of time, right? So that's the basic distinction, basic idea about the difference between throughput and the latency, right? So that's why when we are talking about Fortinet, right? Fortinet, right? You probably are not sticking for throughput, right? Because it could potentially be the case where it takes a total of 1 minute for you to launch 10 operations, and each only takes 6 seconds, right? But on average, however, what you really want is that as long as I decided I want to do something, it should happen immediately, right? And throughput doesn't guarantee that to happen. So that's why it should be, if you just look at these two groups, right, it should be either C or D. And what's different here is, again, the network bandwidth and the frame rate, right? And well, having more data doesn't translate to the frame rate. And there are lots of different things deciding the frame rate of your results. So for example, I can use a terrible encoder which consumes a lot of data, data bandwidth. However, the frame rate is not giving you any higher, right? So that would also be the case. So that's why the right answer should be D in this problem. Okay, in this question. All right. So hopefully that would give you some idea about what we are looking for. So now let's talk about the basic classical CPU performance equation. So when we talk about the performance of a program, what we do care about is the latency. So now I want to ask you, if I want to evaluate the latency of a program, given those elements we have regarding a program and those elements, those parameters we have of a system, how much time do you think the program would take to execute? right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so now since I think this is the first time you experience peer instruction on Zoom, so why don't we try to practice peer instruction one more time with your friends. So right now, where is my chat screen? Okay, so let me send out the okay, so let me send out this question again. And don't forget, this is our practice, right? First of all, open the question that I sent out through the chat. And you are going to be in a breakout room. And after you guys reach a consensus, you guys are free to leave the room and vote again for the same problem. And now, please open the file and go into the breakout room for at most maybe 2 minutes. Go! All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so now I'm inviting one of the group to raise your hand and let us know. So what do you guys think? So far we have yellow score 1, right? So you are now the most hopeful to get gift cards. Any other team? Okay, wow. Okay, I see Mark Mendoza.
Yeah. So
which group are you?
Yellow.
Yellow. Okay. Group. Okay. Yellow group score 2 now. Okay.
Yeah. So we all came to a consensus that it was 5 seconds. We came to like different methods to getting the answer, but the way I did it was so there's 5 billion instructions. Each instruction takes 3 cycles, and we know the processor runs at 3 gigahertz. So
Mhm.
considering that the 5 billion instructions would take 15 billion cycles in total, it'd be 15
15
billion.
billion cycles. Okay, so that's that, right?
Yeah, divided by the 3 gigahertz.
3
So then
gigahertz.
so that's how I got 5 seconds.
Okay, what about other people?
They're talking about how so each we know sorry, it was they divided the 5 billion, or they inverted it because that would be the frequency. And then they said that each instruction
okay.
took 1/5 billion. So then he said it would be 3 over, or sorry. It would be 1/15 billion. But since each one took 3 cycles, it'd be 3/15 billion. So that would be 1/5 billion each cycle.
That's not getting 5 seconds, right?
Yeah, no, it was confusing me as well. But that was his.
All right,
yeah.
but this answer we all agree is here, right? So yeah, so thanks for sharing your opinion. So right now, right? So we haven't talked about any formula yet, right? But again, right, that's why I am talking about, like, it's really important to have a big picture in mind. So what am I saying? The big when I am talking about the big picture in computer architecture, the big picture of the computer system is actually the von Neumann architecture, right? So in terms of von Neumann architecture, as many of you know, if we want to execute a program, we fetch instructions from the memory. So the processor would execute instruction, right? And depending on how many instructions we have, it would definitely be part of the consideration in terms of the execution time of running a program using the processor. And if you have taken CSE140, which I suppose most of you have done, you know digital circuits are controlled by clock. So the processor also controls by the clock. And what is a clock? I don't want to explain that too much, right? But clock, you can think, is a fixed amount of time which allow the processor to synchronize all its operations. So you can consider it's a basic unit of running or performing operations in a processor. So depending on, and each clock cycle, right, is called cycle, right? It's clock cycle, and it takes time. So that time is called cycle time. So how many instructions and how many cycles it takes to execute an instruction, and how long is the cycle time? These 3 components multiplied together would be the total execution time. So the performance equation of CPU is that, and the thing is that the shorter the execution time, we feel is faster, right? So the performance is actually the inverse of the execution time, which means that the longer the execution time, or say the larger the execution time, the worse the performance, or the other way around, right? So the execution time is defined by the number of instructions in a program, number of cycles per instruction, and how many seconds in each cycle. That's 3 things together, right? And some of you were talking about, wait, where is frequency here, right? And don't forget, frequency is the inverse of cycle time. So 1 over frequency. That's how we get the total execution time, right? So let's put these 3 things together, right? So for this question, right, the ET, the execution time, would be IC instruction count 5 times 10 to the 9 times the CPI 3 times the cycle time 1 over sorry, this is wrong. 1 over 10 to the 9, right? So that's the answer, right? So you will get 5 seconds at the end. So one thing I do want to apologize that because I have so many windows that I have to open, I have to pay attention. So if you put things in the chat, I probably won't notice. So Salman, you have a question. what kind of question is that? Do you mind to unmute yourself? So the best way to ask question in the middle of the class is probably raise your hand, right? So Salman, do you want to say something?
Sure. Can we back to next the previous slide that we were talking about? Just
You
something.
mean this one?
Yeah. Just something still doesn't make sense to me why the answer became D. So for sure, okay, the number of operation per second, does it mean that, for example, for Fortnite, does it mean that 2 operation per second is so cheaper than 4 operation per second, correct?
Okay, so let me give you an example, right? So saying that I have a total of 10 operations, right? And I can finish 10 operations together. So this 10 operations, they all start at 0 and they all finish at 10, right? I have 10 of them, right? I can perform this 10 in parallel. They all take 10 minutes, 10 seconds to finish. What's the average operations per second? Someone? Do you mind to answer?
Yeah, I got it. And also,
okay, you got it now, right? That's 1 operation per second, right? But I can also have 0 to 1, right? But I can have 1 to 2, and this would be 10 operations, right? So that's different. But they all understand, right? Okay, what else?
after that, which one is the best? We get the average of all of them to see which choice
No,
is
you cannot take average, right? So the thing is that throughput is an average value. Frame rate is an average value. End-to-end latency is not. Right? It's per operation. Right? So average value, you will fall into this mess. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. We can.
I got it right now.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So, now, so for this question, this particular question, I think we all agree it's 1. All right. So now knowing that performance is defined by instruction count, the CPI, and the cycle time, let's talk about what would affect each factor in CPU performance equation. So in computer systems, there are many factors, and one of the most important factor is probably you. So tell me, what do you think regarding the performance a programmer can affect? All right. Okay, it's right here. Go. All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so now I think for this question, it's definitely question words for discussion because I do see there are some deviation regarding your answers. So why don't we go ahead and discuss within groups? So go ahead and do it. All right, so I think everyone is back and let's see, what do you guys think after discussion in 10 minutes, 10 seconds? Or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so now let's look at what do you guys think. So this is what you have after discussion. Most of you are thinking about the answer is either B, one thing, and or C. So I want to invite one of the group to share that one thing that you have in mind in particular. All right, so Elliot, I think it's group yellow, right? You guys really want a gift card, didn't you?
So our group actually did not reach a consensus before we ended.
Okay, but what did you guys have?
I personally thought it was 1.
Okay.
We all agreed that IC was definitely one of them. And we were
IC is definitely one of them.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the other one we were unsure about CPI.
You're unsure about CPI. All right. Thanks for Kaya.
Our group,
Which group are
I'm
you?
from blue.
Blue. Okay, finally another group.
So our group had 2 answers around as well. Some of us initially thought it was 2, but then eventually everybody agreed that it was probably 1, just the instruction count as well.
Okay, so now stay here. Stay here. Stay here. All right. We have 2 programs here. how do you think the instructions is going to be different? Do you think they are having different instructions? Kaya, what do you think? Or Elliot?
No, looks very similar to
Any
me.
idea? What?
No,
It
looks
seems
looks
to
like
be
the
similar
same
to
number.
you.
Yeah.
The same number of instructions. Elliot,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I think when they compile, they'll be the same, right?
Yeah, it should be the same, right? Okay, so both of you agree it's the same, right? But and function-wise, are they going to be different?
No. No, it doesn't look like it.
No.
No, right? So both of you, the representative of blue and yellow, you reach a consensus now, right? For this particular program, right? This particular two programs, instruction count about the same. Function-wise, they are the same. So now let me show you a demo, right? So this is a demo that shows server will be restarted. Okay. So this is a demo that I have. I prepare for the class, and let me see here. All right, let me do it. So for this particular program, right, I have two parts, right? So for version A, well, for using the compiler flag, for version A, it will run this loop, which I first iterate on I and then iterate on J. And another version, which is version B, iterate on J first and iterate on I. But there is nothing different in the inner loop of this nested for loop. And the rest part of them, they are essentially the same code. So now, what I'm going to do is that I am going to run, the program and show you the, all right, gave up. All right. All right, so let me run the program and show you the difference, show you the performance, what the performance will look like. All right. Window here. Oops. Here it is. All right, CSE142 and the performance, and this is the programmer. And let me show you the program again, so that you know I'm not cheating, right? So this is exactly the same program that I show in the Visual Studio Visual Studio Code, right? And VS Code. And now let me compile the program again, so you know that I didn't generate a binary in the very beginning, right? So now, what if I run MADDA, which is the version A, and let's see how much time it would take. It take 1.1 seconds. And then we run version B. It takes 1.5 seconds, right? So although for these two programs, right, for these two loops, right, it seems like they are not too different from each other, right? But the result is different, right? So now I want you to discuss, I want you to think, why is that? So Salman, do you have a question?
Yeah.
What was that?
Basically, Professor, if I'm not wrong, so it's gonna be instruction program that affects on the different time, right?
Well, I mean, this is something that you have to think about now. All right. Okay, so now let's wrap up in 15 seconds. All right. So looks like we definitely won discussion for this question. So I just sent out the question through the chat. So why don't you guys again, right? So why don't you guys go into the discussion room? All right, so wrap up your discussion in, well, wrap up what your result in, let me see, 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so after discussion, okay, so let me share what you guys have. So after discussion, most of you think it's B now, and before discussion, there is some disparity between B and C. So can I have one of the group raise your hand and share your thoughts? What was that one thing or two things that you have in mind? Okay, try. What's your group thinking about?
Yeah, my group thought that it was B because like
So
I
which
mean
group
like
are you?
I don't know like
The Rocket team. Okay, you are. All right. Okay.
Okay, Rocket team.
Okay, you know they are the most fancy team from throughout the whole Pokemon series.
Yeah.
I think. Okay, anyway. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so like it cannot be instruction count because like like number of instruction count is the same between the two programs, and we thought it was cycles per instruction because like the way like version A program is written, it's like the data is probably closer to each other in memory. So it takes less cycles to access memory and perform the instruction. And also like it cannot be 3 because like cycle time we cannot change it. So yeah.
Okay. Or say we didn't change it. Right?
Yeah. Oh, really?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, we were sort of, along the same lines where once it's compiled, it's the exact same number of instructions and you can't change the clock time. So it's got to be the, it changed in the demo. So it has to be the number of cycles per instruction. It's sort of nebulous why. What I was thinking personally is because you're accessing in the first option, since you're accessing data around a specific array rather than individual arrays one by one. Like when you increment I, it's accessing completely different arrays. I'm assuming it's sort of memory based, and when you're accessing a different array, it's sort of in cache pulls in elements around it because it's expecting you to access those elements as well. Some optimizations, I guess, with memory that again is nebulous and I don't really completely understand myself, but I do know that it does some predictive, it does predict that you're going to use memory blocks around what you just accessed. And so if it's already loaded there in cache, then accessing it per instruction on the next instruction will be super fast. Whereas alternatively, when in the second option, it's got to like completely reload a new block in cache as well as accessing the new stuff from a slower, deeper level of memory. So it's more instructions, even though or more cycles for that one instruction, because it's doing more stuff under the hood.
Okay, so but at least do you agree that this is one thing that programmer does, or one thing that programmer can do, right? Kevin.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. This is
right.
At
So
the software
do
level.
you guys agree that programmers can change the CPI now?
I think yes, but I think it takes a lot of knowledge to really be able to manipulate that.
I know. That's why you need this class. That's why we are having this class. You got it. You totally got it. Right. So this is an example. Actually, the programmer changes the CPI. All right. And if you compare the left-hand side and the right-hand side, in terms of computational complexity, they are both n-squared algorithms. In terms of instruction count, they are probably the same. In terms of the clock rate, on the same processor, it's about the same, right? And one thing in particular, the CPI, right? So that's what it actually changes. So now I'm giving you this particular demo, which I am going to give you, I'm going to use a profiler called perf. And the perf would read the performance counters from your processor to tell you how many cycles that has been consumed and how many instructions that has been executed by the program. So for the version A, which is the faster one, it needs this many instructions, and it takes about 1.18. And they use the matrix code instructions per cycle, but it's actually the inverse of CPI, right? So this one has, you can think the CPI is 1/3. Now, let me run version B. So for version B, right, the amount of instructions, see that? It's almost the same with version A. So what significantly makes the difference is that now the CPI is going from 1/3 to 1/2. So the CPI is jumping from 0.33 to 0.5 with different arrangement of the loop iteration. So actually, right, the right-hand side, it underperforms. It's just because the CPI is worse. So now I think you all agree that this is the case where the programmer changes the CPI. So some of you were thinking about, oh, how about computational complexity, right? I spent a lot of time in CSE 100. Are they junk? Yes or no, right? So 105 or something, right? So algorithm complexity actually provide a good estimate on the performance if both of them hold, right? So if every instruction takes exactly the same amount of time, or every operation takes exactly the same amount of instructions to implement, then complexity makes sense. However, this is not the truth. This is not the real world. So that's why complexity doesn't work out when we talk about the real performance. All right. So finally, right, programmer can also set the cycle time. So let me show you this example that so for example, there is an interface that Intel provide. You can find a document here that the programmer can specifically use library functions to set the cycle time. And now I am going to show you the demo, and I am not sure. Let me see. So this is another machine that I have for the latest version of the Intel processor. So this is an Intel 12th generation processor. And well, to be honest, because of the distraction from those MLB trade, I haven't verified if this demo is going to work or not. So let's take a look and see. So, okay, so I have a script here called change max frequency, right? And for this one, here I can change the frequency of this processor to limit its max frequency to 800 megahertz. Sorry, 800,000 kilohertz means 800 megahertz, or say 0.8 gigahertz. And now I'm executing this one. Oops. Why? No, I'm already sudo, right? Okay, so probably not this process, this machine. Okay, let me try another machine. Okay, so for this particular processor, as far as I remember, frequency it can operate is probably this. All right. Why? Okay, so I will make this demo later. But according to the document, right, you are able to set the frequency of your processor, right? So in fact, if we review how many can programmers affect, the answer is actually all of them. So that's why it's really important to offer this class for computer science students, because you are actually the one who can determine all three factors in CPU performance equation. All right, so now let's talk about programming language. A lot of you were thinking about programming language is important. So how programming languages affect performance? Oops. All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay. All right. So some of you have issues with the poll. However, you are probably the only one who has the issue. So probably you have to figure out what's going on your Zoom. So after the first round of the poll, I definitely think we need a group discussion. So why don't you guys go ahead and have a quick group discussion? All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so after this round of voting, I think most of group have this consensus. But because we are running out of time, just keep in mind what you guys have. We will discuss it tomorrow. However, before you leave the classroom, there are several important things that I want to share with you. First of all, we have another reading quiz due this Thursday. And the reason why I move it earlier is because I want to avoid the case that next week you will have 3 reading quizzes. So now one due this Thursday and another one due next Monday and next Wednesday. So it's better distributed in this way. And we will drop 2 of your lowest performing reading quizzes. So if you miss the first one, you will be okay. And each one, you will have 2 unlimited time shots, and we take the average. And assignment 1 due Sunday midnight, and the TA has been working on the discussion slide. So if you take a look of the assignment and you don't know how to start, discussion session is the best place to ask the question. And check our website for slides, Canvas for the quick quizzes, grayscale for assignments, piazza for discussion. And if you miss any lecture or if you want to review any of our lecture, please go to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe it. Other than that, I will see you in probably half an hour later. Have the rest of the have a good rest in the half an hour.
Professor?
続く
Never mind.
続く続く続く続く
All right, question?
続く
Okay.
Yes, Professor.
Okay, what's the question about?
So there's no reading quiz tomorrow?
There is no reading quiz tomorrow.
Okay, and the 142L lectures at 4, same link, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, see you.
See ya. Samuel, question?
Oh, I was wondering if the 142L lecture and lab will also be like participation based.
It's not, but
No?
at least
Okay.
attend the first lecture, please.
Yeah. I was just wondering if I
Okay.
could like go to the library to watch it or something.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
Goodbye.